No, I'm good. Here we go, we're live.
All right, City of Millwood City Council has returned from its executive session. We came out of executive session at 7:25 p.m. We had a brief technical delay. No action is being taken as a result of the executive session. So that brings us to item number 7 on the agenda tonight. Our action items, agenda 7A is the consent agenda consisting of the treasurer's report for August 2022, the claims and payroll for August 2022. Do I have anyone who would like to take any member of the council who would like to take any of those items on the consent agenda separately? Seeing or hearing none, do I have a motion on the consent agenda as presented?
I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Motion's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing or hearing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Hearing none opposed, the consent agenda tonight is approved unanimously by council. Thank you very much. And that brings us to item 7B, the city logo update. Ms. Jansen.
So as you will remember, in June, there was a request by City Council to explore possibly hiring someone to help develop a new city logo. We put out a request for proposals in July and received 4 proposals. Those came to you at your last meeting for review. Before our special meeting last month, we did have a meeting, Councilmember Kohler and myself, to go through the proposals that were received, and we did narrow them down to one that we would like to proceed with. So I'm here tonight to ask the council to authorize staff to execute a contract with 116 and West for a new city logo. This project was not contemplated for the 2022 budget, and so we are additionally asking for the council to authorize this expenditure to be included in the budget amendment that's coming to council in November. Not to exceed $24,000.
Any questions for Christina? Any questions for Mr. Culler?
Christina, I have a question.
Sure.
So, and Sean, feel free to join. So we have 3 options, A, B, and C. Which do you guys think is the best option?
Well, we haven't sat down and met with the consultant yet. I would, in my mind, I'm thinking somewhere between B and C. I would like personally to talk with the consultant and get a better understanding of all of the products that they're proposing, and then decide what we need and go from there. But their highest quote was $24,000.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That's all I have.
Any other questions or comments? So with no other questions or comments from the council, do I have a motion from council regarding the city logo at this time?
I make a motion to authorize staff to execute a contract with consultant 116 and West, not to exceed $24,000 for our new logo.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing or hearing no motion for discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Hearing none opposed, the motion is approved unanimously. Thank you very much. And that concludes our action items for this evening. That brings us to our reports tonight. So we have a report from our Public Works Director, Mr. Allen.
Good evening. So I wasn't here for most of the month of August, but I will report on what I'm told happened. So we had taken some samples for our water system. We had some different samples that were due this quarter. So we had some VOCs, some nitrates, brosulfan, radium-228 on top of our regular bacteria. So we should be getting results from those probably within a month. Frederick Waterline Project. So we did put out a bid for the waterline project, and actually that's why we met on the August, I think it's 26th, to award that contract to Red Island. Project has getting prepared to start. We're waiting for the contractor to finish supplying all of his documentation before we allow him to start and give notice to proceed. I believe that today we did receive everything that we needed enough to give him notice to proceed, so we can start reviewing the submittals, and then right now they're scheduled to start work on the 19th. So this is the replacement project for the dead end line down at the end of Frederick. We'll be upsizing that from a 4-inch old cast iron to a 8-inch PVC, with the ability to eventually extend that over and loop that system in. Currently it's a dead end. We'll be upgrading that for not only for water quality purposes, but also for fire flow. So we'll be replacing the old 4-inch fire hydrant that we have on that line with a updated fire hydrant that meets the standards. And we'll be replacing that to the end of the line, and which will also have a blow off on it. So we'll be able to blow that line off every once in a while, just to make sure that we've got good water quality down at the end. That's always been an issue. Unfortunately, all the debris tends to go to the end of the pipe. There's no place else for anything to go, and we didn't have a way to flush that out. So I'm sure they'll see a significant difference in their water quality at the end there. So this project is going to be headed by Matt Erdl. So we're starting to pass the reins down a little bit to these guys, and I just wanted to say that Matt passed his water distribution 2 certification just this last week, so very proud of him for getting that done. He'll be working on his cross-connection control, which will be the next thing that he needs to be able to take over the system. So, street projects. So we've got an application for a road project on Oregon down further between Trent and Buckeye area. There's a spot in there that's needs to be completely rehabbed. It's where the concrete and the asphalt meet. You see there's always a hump there. It's just deteriorated, just the heavy traffic that we have going through there. It's just beat the heck out of it. So it's been on the radar for a while. But then we'll also do a grind and overlay at the same time on that for the rest of Oregon down to Frederick. So that'll be a TIB application, so which is great for us because they're a great funding partner, and we only have to pay 5% match. So, the other one we put in there was for a sidewalk project. Been looking at doing some sidewalk work down there on Dalton. It's needed it for quite some time. We've got a few trip hazards from the trees and that, so we've been working with Welchcomb. We've tried to come up with some way to preserve the trees, still have a usable sidewalk, and I think we come up with a good, I'm trying to think of the word here. Design, yes, there you go. Where we can do this. So we'll see if we can get funded through TIB on this, but typically they don't like to fund projects where there's already existing sidewalks. They like to do where there's no sidewalks there if it's more for pedestrian safety. And usually they only do it if you put a sidewalk on one side. But we're going out on a limb, putting our application in there, and with the justification as to why we're doing this, and hopefully we'll get some funding for it. If not, we've got kind of a backup plan to take care of the trip hazards there. But either case, we're going to be doing some work on the sidewalks next year. So we'll find out from TIB in December whether we've been granted funding for either or both of those projects. I'm kind of highly doubting that we'll get both of them funded, but we've decided we'll go for two different projects and gives us a better chance. Miscellaneous things we have going on is we've got the City Hall, like I said, we're going to be replacing these lights with LEDs. Just talked to the contractor that was awarded the job. He's got the parts on order, so hopefully within the next month we should have these, and hopefully at the next council meeting we will be able to have these to where they're dimmable. So
We do have an example out in the.
yeah, in the other room there, we did bring an example in.
Small meeting room, if you'd like to look and see, we do have an example of the lights we're gonna be putting in out there.
Yep. And then we'll also be doing new ones in the offices, and then also down in the downstairs area. And then also the shop will be getting all LED lights, and so it'll be one of those deals where you walk through and then the lights come on, so we're not wasting electricity, because, to tell you the truth, for the last 30-some years, we go in there in the morning, we turn the lights on, everybody goes out, does their stuff, and then we shut the lights off before we go home. So, not great practice, but we're in and out of there all the time, so this will be an energy saver for us. Plus, we're also getting subsidized through Avista for the LED program, so we'll take advantage of that while it's still available. And then, of course, the tennis courts lights. We've known we've had some issues with that, but we've been trying to get those switched over to LED before we put any additional money into that. So that'll be also part of this project. Working on the current budget. We did hire I'm hoping not stealing anybody's thunder here, but we did hire another maintenance worker. So we had discussed this earlier, that we were going to hire another person to come in, and then that would allow me to have more time to train the other guys to their positions. So we hired Bryce Nowak. He started his first day yesterday. He's a nice young man. He's doing a great job, and that's going to free us up to get a few more things done. So we kind of struggled this year not having a seasonal person, so we all kind of pitched in. Well, okay, they all pitched in and took care of the parks and rec and everything. So I would love to get back on the mower. So,
That can be arranged.
hey, I'm ready. So the other thing we have is the tree inventory and management plan. So we have gotten the contract with Jim Flott from Community Forestry Consultants. He's kind of backed up a little bit because of COVID. He wasn't able to actually finish some of his projects, so he's been kind of playing catch up on that. But he will be starting here September 26th. He's coming back into the country, and he will start the inventory on that. We will have a tree board meeting on the 26th of September, which is the same day he's coming in, so unfortunately he won't be at our meeting, but we will be starting the tree inventory that week, and that's the first phase of this project, is to go out there and do the tree inventory, see what we've got. And then he'll make a report from there, and then from that data we will sit down and start discussing a management plan, and then we'll have some open house meetings for discussion on that as we develop the plan. So hopefully we can get this knocked out by the end of the year. If not, it'll be the first part of the year. We have until June in order to get our project completed and from the DNR grant. So as you can see, even though I wasn't here, the guys kept things going, and they're doing really well, and they're taking a lot more responsibility now, and so I think you're going to be in good hands. So, any questions?
Any questions for Paul?
Thank you for such a thorough report, Paul. On the September 26th tree board meeting, do you know if there's a ability to remote into that meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
We are under the same guidelines as what the council is, so we will be streaming that. So there's a YouTube. We will put the agenda out, post it just like we've been doing for the council meetings.
Fantastic.
And then we will be streaming it. So that's why we have Daniel. Daniel's our IT guy for keeping it going, so.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Other questions for Paul? Mr.
Mayor.
Sander?
Paul, are we doing a quadrant reseeding of the roads? I mean, crack seeding again this year in a different quadrant?
Not this year. We did a pretty thorough job of doing everything over a period of years.
Yeah.
Argonne was one of them that we were gonna actually hit, but we kept thinking, well, the project's gonna go this year. Well, it's gonna go this year. So we're kind of holding off on that until we find out whether the Argonne project is going down here, and if the funding for the Argonne project on the south side of the tracks goes. And if it does, we won't need to, because it'll be a full grind and overlay. But if it doesn't, then yeah, that's on the
Just keep on.
project. Yeah, so we've got enough material. We bought enough material when we got the TIB grant for doing that whole project. And so we stockpiled a bunch of it. And then we just get our equipment from here at Arrow, so it's local, so we can pretty much pick it up anytime and go out and do it. But yeah, we were a little short staffed to do any extra projects this year, so with having Bryce on board for this next year, that's gonna help. But yeah, that is on the plan to continue the crack sealing program, and they'll, like I said, just go out and look at the different quadrants and see what needs to be done. So, I mean, there's always newer cracks that come up, but we hadn't done any crack sealing ever after we'd done the sewer projects. So
Yeah.
those roads, you know, were 30 years old. So, I mean, that was probably the best thing we could ever do to preserve the roads that we have for now.
So
That and then doing some chip sealing projects. Yeah, so I think hopefully those guys will continue to do the maintenance on it. I'm sure they will. And then, you know, the road should continue to last.
Mr. Kester, you had a quick question.
I just want to make a comment, Paul, on your LED lights. I'm a facilities and apparatus board for the commissioners, and we've been doing a little research and study. You're going to save the city and the taxpayers significant money by going to your LED lights over time. So last twice as long and I'm using much less electricity. So it's a good move on your part on doing that.
Well, thanks. I think, you know, we worked together as a group on this, and, you know, having the sensors in there that's going to be a big saver. You know, when we changed the street lights to LED, we ended up with a big savings on that too.
That's
So,
what we're doing with our stations.
thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for Mr. Allen? Thank you very much. So let's move on to our treasurer's report. Ms. Mackin.
Just a few quick things. I'm working on the budget for next year. Actually started at the end of July, so we're trying to get a jump on it this year. Christina and I have been coordinating when it would fit best into the council schedule and try to do it without having you have a special meeting around Thanksgiving, because nobody wants that. So it looks like we'll do our first public hearing on October 11th for the revenue sources and property tax levy. And then on the 8th, we will bring the resolution, property tax resolution to you, and have the second public hearing, the first reading of the preliminary budget, and then December 13th, do the final.
So hopefully we can avoid a special meeting, but we will get a schedule out to folks by email with that, so folks can block in. These will be our, we will need a quorum +1 at the November 8th meeting, and we will need a quorum +1 at the December
13th, I believe it is.
13th meeting. So just for a reminder there. Anything else? Audit?
I have a meeting with them tomorrow on the third component. This is the step before the exit. So, good Lord, I'm so done with it. So, I'll keep you posted.
Any questions for Ms. Mackin? Thank you. So we'll move to our planning, city clerk, and code enforcement. Ms. Jansen.
So from the clerk's office, I am happy to let you know that our scanning project of all the address files has been completed. We still have the paper files. I'm going in randomly and looking for things in the electronic file just to make sure that we feel confident, but it looks like that project has been done completely and correctly. So that's good news for everyone. From the planning department, I just want to report on a couple of things. City staff and the Historic Preservation Commission participated in Millwood Days the last weekend of August. We started that weekend off with a movie in the park here, put on by the city. We had really good attendance at both of our movies this year. I think I don't know the exact reason, but I suspect it might be that we showed newer movies than we had the first year, and of course we didn't have the smoke and that sort of stuff, so that we had really good attendance at our movies. And then we had 2 booths at Millwood Days, the city with the park plan, and then Historic Preservation had theirs. We had really good traffic through our booth. We got lots of good feedback on the park plan that wasn't from farmers market customers, because we had pretty much only gotten farmers market customers. So I plan to probably at the October meeting bring the plan back to you. As we've worked through the process, after every farmers market, we would fine tune the plan more and more. And I think that the plan that we have now will probably need a couple of tweaks, but overall is probably pretty close to what the public response was. So I'll be glad to bring that back to you and let you guys look at it and talk about it before we remand it back to the Planning Commission for a public hearing. A couple of other planning things. I am working with Welch Comer on a subdivision of the park. This is, I think we've talked about this before, due to the fact that we need to have separate addresses for our different wells and things in the park. So we are working on a subdivision. They submitted their first go at the map last week. We asked for some changes. So I imagine that that'll be wrapping up here in the next 6 or 8 weeks. We have a couple of events coming up in Millwood that we haven't seen before. So I want to remind you the Fresh Hop Festival taking place in the park on October 8th. I have received their special event permit and the notice from the Liquor Control Board. So it does look like that's a go. So I would say definitely come out and check that out if you're so inclined. As part of that, we have had a local business owner come in and propose 2 events for October in the city. One is a haunted Halloween 5K. Will be run on the same course as the Millwood Days 5K, so down Empire to West Valley and back. He is going to be asking neighbors along the route to decorate their house. It's going to be on the Sunday the 23rd. And then he is also proposing a smaller event that coincides with the Fresh Hops Festival on the trail. So some good events that are coming our way. Oh, and then also lastly, the farmers market is planning a trick-or-treat event on Halloween in the park, either on the tennis courts or up in the parking area where their vendors will be available to have little kids trick-or-treat. They are working with Scope to help people make their way across Argonne from the trunk-or-treat at the Presbyterian Church. Just another safe option for kids on Halloween. So that should be fun. And then lastly, I just want to touch on some code enforcement, specifically with a business out on the east end of town. We have had we've had many calls and visits to City Hall about a concert series that was taking place at a business out on Trent. And so we have been working with Mr. Wurst and have issued a cease and desist letter. The owner of the business did come in and meet with me. It sounds like he's got some neat ideas for what he might like to do there, but I assured him that a concert venue probably wasn't the way to go. So I'm waiting for some proposals from him. I don't know that any of you will hear from the neighbors or the residents, but just in case, I think the breakdown that we're having is our noise ordinance goes into effect at 10 p.m. And so the calls that we're receiving and the complaints that we're receiving that are at 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening, that's not something that we're able to enforce on. And so that's taking some education both by staff and electeds if you ever hear about that. So other than that, it seems like the rest of the code enforcement cases that we had over the summer, and there were many, have been wrapping up, and we are getting good cooperation with our property owners, which is always what we want. So other than that, I don't have anything unless there's any questions.
Questions for Christina on any of that? Excellent. So thank you very much, Christina, for all your hard work on that. I will keep my report, mayor's report, brief. I do want to touch on the code enforcement issue. There was the potential for having to exercise the cease and desist order over the weekend. The business was in compliance with the cease and desist order. I visited it personally. As Christina said, there were some issues or some crossed wires between the neighbors and the business from the standpoint of what the city can and can enforce on. As Christina was saying, and I would say to you as the council, they are in substantial compliance with our code if they cease their noises before 10 p.m. It's important to remember that the business is located in a C1 commercial area. They have the right to make noise under our code coming from a commercial area. And so, like anything else, as long as they are finished up by 10 p.m., they are within the Millwood code. Otherwise, for right now, they appear to have put a stop to the other issues that were causing consternation amongst the adjacent residential property owners. I have, on a couple other matters, I have a meeting on the 22nd with Christina and City of Spokane Valley to begin coordinating our efforts to address unhoused and homeless. This will be a farther ranging conversation than what we were looking at with our ARPA monies for looking at providing subsidies for local community partners. This is more of an idea, we'll begin a conversation of how we begin to partner with an entity in order to meet certain requirements put forth by Boise v. Martin for shelter space, what partners we may look at in a combined effort, what the efforts are going to be with Spokane County and City of Spokane, and how that's going to move forward as we go forward as a region. So we will be beginning our conversations as a regional, as a partner in the regional effort. We do feel that we are best served, or as the executive, I feel we're best served by coordinating our efforts with Spokane Valley, as opposed to simply going directly to City of Spokane, even though they seem to be leading the charge. I think we are more along the lines of looking at what we need to be doing in our local area, and so Spokane Valley will be the logical place. And so after that meeting, at the October meeting, I'll have to the council, I'll have a better report on what was discussed. We will be having a couple other meetings with City of Spokane Valley on our permitting issues for our building permits, trying to look at maybe streamlining our permitting process and making it easier on the folks in Millwood who are looking at permitting. And then, as always, checking in with Valley and what their commitment might be to extend the Millwood Interurban Trail between Vista and Fancher. From this standpoint here, I have a meeting on Friday with Avadex, as we discussed in the past, to bring our audiovisual system and our system for transmitting our meetings to the public more into the 21st century. Avadex will be getting a proposal back to me, and so at the October meeting, we'll be discussing what that might look like, both for an investment and what we would be getting for that investment for the future. From the standpoint of the Argonne project, as Mr. Allen said, we did get our final license agreement, everything done with Union Pacific, so we do have license to the property on Trent. We have had some issues with Inland Empire paper. We will likely be bringing those where we are back to council in October based on what we have figured out we're going to need to do going forward with Inland Empire paper. And so I think at the October meeting, we will have some action item, or we will have action items or an action item for the council related to land acquisition from Inland Empire paper. That's pretty much all I have at this time. Are there any questions for me from the council, from anyone?
Kevin, I have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
So do we have a anti-camping panhandle ordinance on the books right now?
We do not have a panhandle ordinance. We don't have a camping ordinance per se, other than the fact that the park is closed, Paul, from when to when?
10 to 6.
10 to 6, so that prohibits camping in the park.
And it's posted.
And it is posted. The trail, I think, is potentially a different matter, and we've considered that, but there are some issues, as I said, with respect to the Boise v. Martin decision, is we can't prohibit camping in public areas that aren't posted because we don't have shelter space available. As Boise v. Martin clearly stated, it's not a crime to not have a home. It would be hard to close the trail because that's literally a pedestrian access, and that would be the same as saying you can't be on a sidewalk from midnight to 6 a.m. So it does exist, the fact that people can walk on the trail. I think posting that as the other areas of that as no camping might be, we'd have to ask for a legal opinion on that. But from the other areas with respect to Millwood Park, the park does close, we do have closure hours on the park. From other areas in the city, we have identified a number of areas in our commercial districts where we have posted no overnight parking. And so as we notice vehicles using those areas that are not in accordance with our posted parking restrictions, we ask our city code enforcement individuals to go out and advise those residents that we do have the ability, as granted to the city by the council, to execute removal of those vehicles if they are in violation.
I would think, especially in lieu of Camp Hope, according to the paper, Spokane's going to try to clean it up by October 14th. I would think that we would want to have something on the books. If we got folks that want to camp in the center of Dalton, on the grassy areas, things like that, just to make it clear, make it easy for enforcement. I would think that it's easier to have laws before we do it than retroactively. And so I don't know if we need to have that on an agenda item to discuss, but I know one of the things I hear from residents is the concern of our proximity to Camp Hope and, you know, in the future, are we prepared for it? I think there's going to be some changes coming.
So Kelly, this is Brian. I'll chime in. Just while we don't have a panhandling prohibition per se on the books, we did adopt an aggressive solicitation, which is clearly allowed for enforcement under current law. You know, solicitation could be panhandling. It could be. It doesn't have to be by anybody that's of you know, an unhoused nature. It could be Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, you name it, and standing in front of an Albertsons. But to the extent that anybody's engaging in activity that otherwise threatens the safety or protection of a person, that is prohibited. As to the anti-camping, we have explored it. We've looked at it. We've gone down the path. We actually have a draft of a code amendment that we were looking at one point in time. And unfortunately, what happens is we can adopt it, but I'm not certain that we're going to get our current law enforcement services to enforce it. There's not even a current agreement amongst the city, the county, Spokane Valley, as to what the Boise case law allows for. So by adopting something that we know that our current, and it's not something that you can enforce by code enforcement, it would be criminally enforced by law enforcement. So I think what we would need to do is try to work with the county, who's our law enforcement agency, to better understand what they will or will not enforce. An example of what we do have on the books is you can't block traffic. You can't set up, a collection of items in the middle of a roadway. We have had that. We actually had that recently, and we were advised by the county that they would not touch the situation given their interpretation of the Boise case law. So it's one thing to have a law on the books. It's another thing to have something that your law enforcement will enforce. So that's kind of been our issue as we've tried to work through this.
Yeah, I understand.
I think we can certainly further explore it and try to bring something back to council that addresses it, within the bounds of what I think is an ever-changing area of law. I probably shouldn't speculate on the public record, but I think what you are seeing is not just jurisdictions in the area, but jurisdictions within the entire Ninth Circuit looking to enforce or to adopt laws that are addressed to urban camping or sit-lie or anything of that nature, willing to re-challenge the Boise case law. I think that's what you're going to see is there might be some decisional law come out that might create a little bit of a split in how things are interpreted in Ninth Circuit, which ultimately would have to send it up to the Supreme Court.
I understand. So I would think that maybe next meeting, after the mayor has some clarification from City of Spokane Valley related to shelter space, maybe we should readdress this and just kind of talk about it. I know there's lots of concerned residents. I'm concerned. It seems to me that it would be difficult if we have somebody that wants to camp on the median in Dalton and we don't have enforcement. That's going to make our residents pretty upset. Right? I'll be pretty upset with that. I don't want somebody camping there. So let's talk about that next meeting, if that sounds good.
So Kelly, I will commit to bringing back a report to council from my meeting with Valley, and then I will ask Mr. Wurst to put on his thinking cap, and we can come back with some ideas. It may not be satisfactory to all parties involved, given the as Brian so pointedly put it, the ever-changing situation within our own region as how we choose to deal with our unhoused populations. But we will make that report. So any other questions? Cool, so we'll just go right into Mr. Worth's legal report.
I really don't have anything to add that's otherwise it's been addressed at the agenda tonight. Happy to answer any questions for the council or staff if anybody has any.
Any questions for Brian? Not hearing any, so that closes our reports for tonight, our staff reports. For council information, item number 9, you will see that the sheriff's report is included in there. We have not received a scraps report, but when we do get the scraps report, we will pass that on. Public remarks. Do we have we received any written public remarks for any items?
We have not.
Do we have anybody in the audience who wishes to make a public remark this evening? Second call for public remarks. Third and final call for public remarks. Nobody coming up for public remarks. We'll close the public remarks period. And that brings us to item number 11, council remarks. Ms. Beesey, you're up.
Yes, so I had talked with the mayor about how to phrase this, but I am very interested in the tree board and will be attending the next meeting. And I'm just throwing that out there. I'm representing as a citizen, not as a council member, but because if 3 of us attend, so just to make the rest of the council members aware that I plan on attending a few tree board meetings. Other than that, thank you everybody for your reports and great work.
Thank you. Mr. Culler.
Nothing tonight.
Mr. Sander.
First of all, congratulations to Matt, for finally taking the test after a lot of persuasion. And also, thank you to Christina and Lisa. I mean, they were there all day long at the Millwood Days, and it was kind of a long day for you, I'm sure, but you did a great job, and people were stopping to visit, and you were out there. I don't want to say soliciting, soliciting, but you were out there working the crowd. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Straven's comments.
Sorry about that. Hey, so I have a point of order. Do we need to approve the minutes from the 8th and 23rd?
Did we not get them? I thought we did.
Consent agenda.
We got them, but unless I missed something, I don't think we've approved them.
Oh. They were down there.
And they're not in here. The minutes aren't in the
Oh.
packet.
Minutes are in here, but
Oh, they are?
on our consent agenda. These
They're in here.
Okay. Wasn't listed.
But it is in.
So it was not made part of the consent agenda, so what do we do? Go back to is it just a vote?
Yeah, regular meeting, you can take action on anything during a regular meeting.
So, thank you, Mr. Straven. So let us hold off on Mr. Van Hees's comments, and at this time, I would ask for a motion on the meeting minutes of the Millwood City Council for the regular meeting of Tuesday, August 9th, 2022, and the special meeting held on Tuesday, August 23rd, 2022. Would anybody from the council like to take either of those 2-minute items those 2 items separately? Seeing or hearing none, do I have a motion on accepting the minutes as presented?
I make a motion to accept the minutes as presented for the August 9th and August 23rd meetings.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Van Hees. Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion from any council member? Seeing or hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Mr. Straven, could you abstain from the special meeting? He wasn't present.
Okay. Are there any opposed? Hearing none opposed, we have 4 in favor, none opposed, and 1 abstention. The minutes are approved. Thank you very much. So, Mr. Straven, any more comments?
Yeah, Yeah, so Mr. Straven, I would like to propose that we change the meeting time from 7 p.m. to 6 p.m. A couple of reasons for it. One, it gives us more time. And so, at 7 o'clock, if we go 2 hours, then it's 9 o'clock if we get done. It seems that, in the future, it's better to have more time than be stressed about time. The other reason is I'm hoping that we get more public attendance. So 7 o'clock seems an odd time to me, but I'm also the new guy too, so I'm curious about what other council members think.
Is there any unwillingness for staff to bring forward a change, or it would be an ordinance, correct? An ordinance amending the start time of the regular city meetings from 7 to 6 p.m. Anybody not want to hear that?
I'll just say we do all of our special meetings at 6 PM, so.
All of our other boards meet at 6 too. It would be consistent with what everyone else does.
7's a lot more convenient than 6 for me.
Well, maybe what we do is we bring it forward and we see if we can split the difference at 6:30 or something like that, as the mayor, I can see both ways. I understand back in the day why it started at 7 from the standpoint of people getting off work, going home, eating dinner, being able to come back here. But I will say too, one of the things that Mr. Stravens is addressing is our meetings aren't always a slam dunk anymore. We do have some issues that seem to take a little longer, and by the time we're done and rolling out of here, we are approaching 9:30 sometimes. So if no one from the council is particularly opposed, at Mr. Stravens' request, we can bring forward an ordinance presenting a change in the meeting time to 6, and that would allow the council to debate it in open session and figure out from there. So, request has been made. We can bring that forward at the October meeting and see where we go from there. Any other comments, Mr. Straven? Sounds like no?
No, thank you.
All right, thank you. So, Mr. Van Hees, any comments?
I got nothing right now.
Well, thank you, Mr. Van Hees. So that brings us to the end of our council remarks. Thank you very much. Announcements. Do we have any announcements? Christina, none? Other than anything coming up? Just what you rolled out before. So the Hop Festival on the 8th.
Yes, the Fresh Hop Festival on the 8th. And then there'll be a Halloween 5K on the 23rd and a trick-or-treat event on Halloween.
That brings us to the end of the sure, go ahead.
So I got a text saying that the farmers market was going to be canceled this week because of smoke. Is that something that is factual?
I had not heard that,
Okay.
but I wouldn't necessarily normally. I only know when I show up if there's a flag out there if they're doing it, so yeah.
Will we be putting something out on the website either way, so a public record, we could say, everybody check the website because it may or may not need to?
Yeah, I could do that.
Okay, perfect.
Or they have a website too.
Yeah, Farmers Market also has a
yes.
website
Yeah.
too.
Fair.
Yeah, it's kind of their farmers market.
Fair, yeah.
My guess is they were probably holding off to see what the weather on Wednesday was actually going to be, as opposed to what we thought it was going to be. So, any other announcements? Seeing no other announcements, our next regular meeting is right now set for Tuesday, October 11th at 7 p.m. And with no other business before us, is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.